Democratic voters in South Carolina overwhelmingly showed their support for medical marijuana in a non-binding vote in June. There was also a bill signed just last month approving limited use of cannabis oil for treatment of epilepsy. But South Carolina has done little in the way of marijuana reform, and I wanted to find out if two people who deal with pot as part of their jobs think South Carolina was missing out on tax revenue and wasting money on enforcement. Lighting Up continues to get the green light. From decriminalization and dispensaries to medical marijuana and pot-infused pastries, marijuana is in the news daily. But there's little development on the issue in South Carolina. According to numbers from the Horry and Georgetown County Drug Enforcement Unit, more than 324,000 grams, or just under $10 million worth of pot, was seized last year. We talked to an undercover law enforcement officer who asked to remain anonymous. He says in South Carolina, pot use is second only to cocaine.
It's one of the heavier used drugs in South Carolina. Our
source has more than 10 years in narcotics work. He says in his experience, the heavy use comes at a heavy cost.
I think that there's larger impacts rather than just the effect it has on the individual users. There's impacts on the community. You know, what are we doing if we legalize or release another vice into society?
But marijuana is a drug 58% of Americans now think should be legalized. That's according to a Gallup poll taken last fall. With so many states now changing their stance on the drug, we asked 15th Circuit Solicitor Jimmy Richardson whether courts in South Carolina are wasting time and money prosecuting pot crimes.
It's a big myth out there that our prisons are jam-packed with people with simple possession of marijuana.
Where do you think that myth comes from?
I think that there has been a tremendous campaign by people that would be for the legalization of marijuana to make that myth acceptable. Nothing could be further from the truth.
Richardson says most cases don't even make it to the solicitor's office to face major penalties. He says the majority of cases they see are for trafficking 10 pounds of marijuana or more, and there have only been 3 or 4 of those cases in the last year.
But I'll assure you the solicitor's office isn't spending wads of money nor locking people up for decades at the time for marijuana.
Until the voters speak and state lawmakers in Columbia act, all that matters is the law. While the majority of Americans' opinion on marijuana might be changing, is it fair to say that yours is not?
Not at this point.
Our source in law enforcement says he'd recommend South Carolina monitor marijuana laws in Colorado and Washington state for at least 10 years before acting on any kind of recreational marijuana legislation in our area. Jack Lamson, WPDE News Channel 15.